Welcome to That's the Beauty of It, a podcast dedicated to exploring the beauty found in the human experience in all of its ups and downs, twists and turns. We will celebrate the power, creativity, and resilience of the human spirit. We will explore and discuss what it takes to create a beautiful state within yourself regardless of the circumstances. This podcast is for those determined to live with purpose, on purpose, and create a beautiful life you love now. I'm Kara Brandt, founder of Beautiful Life Mentoring, and I get to be your host. Hey, what's up, everyone? Here we are, episode 4 of That's the Beauty of It. Thank you for listening in so far. Today's topic is inspired by last week's interview with Portia Lauder. She made a huge impact on me. I've read her book, and she touched on an aspect of creating a beautiful life that I'm super passionate about and I think is so foundational and so important. And that is the power of honesty and the truth. I think so often that we are led to believe that telling the truth or being fully transparent can be unsafe, it can be scary, and maybe it could even harm us in some way if the full truth were to be revealed. But the truth about the truth, at least according to me, the truth sets us free every time. And it has the ability to act as an anchor of strength and stability when we are our most vulnerable. And I just truly believe that if you really want to create a beautiful life for yourself, regardless of your circumstances, you get to learn how to face the truth. You get to learn how to see things as they really are in the moment. And this is free of the story, free of the judgments and the perceptions that we tend to create around what we experience. And it requires you to own it, to own your part in it, to be fully honest and transparent with yourself. And it can be scary, it can be brutal, and frankly, it can just sting like a mother sometimes. And I want to normalize this a little bit because it's really, truly a human nature tendency that we tend to avoid the pain of the truth. And it's just that part of our brain that is telling us that, oh, this is uncomfortable, this feels painful, and therefore there must be danger, right? And so as we're learning how to connect to the power or harness the power of the truth holds, we have to learn how to override that part of our brain that is sending that signal of danger even when we aren't necessarily in danger. And in the experience that I've had working with hundreds of clients over the years in personal development and in the healing space, I've noticed that there are two main ways that we avoid the pain. And both of these ways really are truly rooted in fear. And that is in denial and shame. Denial is that turning a blind eye, right? It's the maybe the numbing to it. That fear that if we were to really see things as they really are, it might be too painful to face. And because I'm talking about the truth today, I want to give you fair warning that I want to give myself permission to be a little more raw and truthful in sharing more about my past in a way that I haven't really allowed myself so far to share it. And just know that my intention is never to defame or to undermine the character of anyone, rather to allow for that truth to help others and to set us all free and empower us all to do better and to be better moving forward. As I mentioned before, I suffered from chronic, debilitating physical illness for many, many years, as well as anxiety and depression. And it wasn't really until my early 30s that I started to get the help that I actually needed. And it was definitely outside of the box of Western medicine. I'm not dissing on Western medicine in any way, just that for what I needed, I wasn't getting what I needed until I was able to branch outside of that. And until then, in my early 30s, I really had no idea how the truth of how I was raised, the trauma that I experienced, how it was really affecting my mental health and my physical health. And I was really genuinely living in denial, and even going to the extent of protecting my abusers and defending them for so many years. And you might call it maybe some form of Stockholm syndrome. If you don't know what that is, look it up. And I blocked out so much, so many memories for the sake of survival. I had convinced myself that I had grown up in this great family that loved God and served the community. And while sure, there were good things, and the intention to do good was definitely there. But what might have appeared as this great God-fearing family on the outside, this wonderful family of 13 kids, like, wow, what a great thing that is. And you all seem like you're so put together. That was just not the case behind closed doors. I grew up in what felt like to me a living hell, where I learned to function. Well, I don't know if it was really called functioning, but I was programmed to constantly be in a state of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, death. I mean, all of those things that can happen as a result of living in that fight or flight space. And it was confusing. It was terrifying. It was isolating. And you might be thinking, how can you feel isolated in such a big family? I mean, there's so many of you, and you'd be surprised at how incredibly, profoundly isolating it felt for me. And the only way I can describe it is that I felt like I was sent to this foreign country against my will, where I didn't know the culture, I didn't know the language, and no matter what I did, it felt like they just hated me. And again, that's probably my story to some extent, but it was very, very isolating and painful and chaotic and confusing. And while I believe that most people genuinely are inherently good, they come with good intentions, and they're really just trying to do the best they know how with what they have, there's still that aspect that in their own pain and in their own ignorance, their choices can create catastrophic collateral damage in the lives of innocent people. And that's the truth about how I grew up. There was catastrophic collateral damage in spite of all the good intentions. And as I learned to face the truth of what I experienced as a child and all of its many complicated nuances, it just for so long felt way too painful to face. And so I denied it. I denied it all to myself, to others for many years. I defended in the name of, well, they're a good person. They meant well. They were abused as a child, without really giving full voice to the truth of that collateral damage that I experienced. The brain damage, the stunted growth, the neglect and just the pain that I experienced. And as I denied this to myself, of really seeing it for what it really was, you know, you guys, I was so shut down. I'll never forget. And forgive me to anybody that's listening that was involved in this episode, in this incident. Again, my intention is not to defame, and I'm not going to offer up names, but oh gosh, I think I was 10 years old, and it was Christmas time, and we would draw names, and we'd get in partnerships. Like we would get in pairs where we would, as a pair, we'd be paired up with a sibling, and we would be in charge of certain people that we would get gifts for. And there was a big, huge banana box under the tree. And it was the biggest gift under the tree. And I was so excited because my name was on that box. And there was another box about the size of a shoebox that also had my name on it. And the siblings that were in charge of me in giving me the gifts, they talked it up, and they were so excited and said, "Kara, you're going to love it. It's the best thing." And da 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 da. And Christmas morning comes around, and I'm so excited, and I'm opening my gifts. And that I went for the big box first, because you got to go for the biggest one, right? And I'm opening this big giant banana box, only to find that it was filled with rocks from the garden. And I was so shut down, and I was in so much denial in facing the truth of my own pain and my own circumstances that I laughed. I actually laughed. And then they said back to me, "Man, Kara, you're such a good sport. We were so worried that you would be so hurt." Of course I was hurt. I was devastated. Really deep down, I was devastated. But I had trained myself to deny the truth of how I felt for so up until that point, that was my response, was to laugh it off. And then I opened the next gift, hoping that maybe something better was here. And I open up only to find a box full of trash. And what did I do? I laughed it off. And I got praised for laughing it off. "Man, you're such a good sport, Kara." Not a single word was spoken by my parents of, "What were you guys thinking? What kind of gift is that? That's so unkind." There was nothing like that. There was no defending me. There was no letting me know. And if it wasn't for my dear sister, who kind of was like a second mom to me, and I will always just love her so dearly for what the service that she gave to me when I was little, because that was, I have really strong memories of the love and the nurturing that I received from her that I didn't really get from anyone else. Anyway, she pulled me aside and she says, "Kara, this is not okay." And I was like, "What? They're just joking." And I went on and defending them and protecting them. She says, "No, this is not okay. You deserve better than this." And if it hadn't have been for her, I probably would have just been so numb to how cruel that really was. And so that's just kind of an example of how broken and numb and in denial I was as a kid. And that went on. And the result of all of that was that I developed literally a broken heart. I developed a heart condition that eventually required surgery and caused years of mini strokes, back-to-back mini strokes for over the course of 10 years. It caused chronic fatigue. I mean, the list goes on of not having the proper oxygen pumping to my system because my heart was broken. It caused years of chronic physical pain from other physical issues developed as a result of my emotional pain. And the emotional pain that I was experiencing led me to years of suicide ideation. And it wasn't until I chose to really face it all, and this, again, it was like in my early 30s, where I finally, I was looking outside of the box of Western medicine. I had been introduced to energy healing and mindfulness. I'd been introduced to Byron Katie's The Work. And I started to make that connection of how the trauma, how my emotional state was affecting and connected to my body. And so as I began to explore this, and I began to try different things, and really face the reality of what I experienced through my childhood, I did begin to heal. The process has taken many years. There's been some really ugly and raw moments. It's been years of doing the work that's been required to heal my brain, to heal my heart, and to heal my body, to understand what was possible, how I deserved to be treated. And I'm still healing. In fact, the past few days, there's more that has come to the surface, and frankly, as I'm recording this, I'm feeling pretty raw. I'm feeling pretty vulnerable today as I'm sharing this. Again, I get to do the work to face that truth, to love on it, to heal it, so that it can move, and that I can move on and become a better version of myself. So these two ways that we hold ourselves back. The first way is denial. And the second way, I would say, would be shame. And again, they're both fueled by fear. And what is our underlying, most core fundamental fear that all humans face is the fear that we won't be loved, the fear that we won't be accepted, the fear that we won't be enough, right? And so when we hold ourselves back from the truth because we're afraid of the pain of shame, we actually and ironically hold ourselves back from the truth of who we really are. Because you see, shame doesn't exist in the truth. But as we in our just human nature of avoiding pain because it feels like danger, it feels unsafe, if we allow that part of our brain to run the show, then we don't really get to truly connect to who we are. When we can't take full responsibility for our part, when we're not able to see things as they really are, we allow that fear to hold us back. It holds us back from the truth and the truth of who we are. Again, not just the truth of how we're showing up and the truth of how we've been treated and the truth of what's actually happening in the moment, but of really who we are at the core, the essence of who we are, which I believe is love. In our human nature, we've convinced ourselves that being honest with our part and with our shortcomings, it's too vulnerable, right? Because it's too shameful. We judge vulnerability or as weakness or as messing up as somehow that we are bad, that we are inherently bad and wrong because we made a mistake. But the truth is we're just learning. I believe that we are of divine nature, that we are divine beings having a human experience. And the whole point of this experience is to learn and to grow. Much like a toddler learns how to walk. We don't shame our toddlers for falling on their face because they haven't yet developed the muscle strength and coordination to walk effectively without falling over. So why do we shame ourselves for messing up, for making choices in our own pain or in our own ignorance?